Thomas and Friends Retold. Episode 20. Thomas and Mrs. Kyndley's Christmas. It was the start of December. Thomas was pulling his faithful coaches, Annie and Clarabelle. They were packed full of people and parcels. Thomas was having very hard work. Come on, he puffed. We're feeling so full, grumbled the coaches. As Thomas puffed along the line, he looked at the hill ahead. Can I do it? He puffed anxiously. Suddenly, he saw a handkerchief waving from a cottage window. He felt better at once. Yes, I can, puffed Thomas bravely. He pulled his hardest and was soon through the tunnel and resting in the next station. That was Mrs. Kyndley who waved at you, Thomas, said his driver. She has to stay in bed all day. Poor lady, I'm sorry for her, said Thomas sadly. Engines have heavy loads at Christmas time, but Thomas and Toby didn't mind the hard work when they saw Mrs. Kyndley waving. But then, it began to rain. It rained for days and days. Thomas and his crew didn't like it one bit. Off we go, Thomas, his driver would say. Pull hard and we'll get home quickly. Mrs. Kyndley won't wave today. But whether she waved or not, Thomas would always whistle and Toby would ring his bell when they passed the little lonely white cottage. Its white walls stood out against the dark background of the hills. Hello, exclaimed Thomas's fireman one rainy day. Look at that! The driver came to see a hanging, flapping, bed-wrangling object from the window of the cottage. It resembled a large red flag. Mrs. Kyndley needs help, I expect, said the driver, and he applied the brakes. Thomas gently stopped. The conductor came squelching through the rain up to Thomas's cab, and the driver pointed to the flag. See if her doctor's on the train and ask him to go to the cottage, then walk back to the station and tell them we've stopped. The fireman went to see if the line was clear in front. 2 passengers left the train and went to the cottage. Then the fireman returned. We'll back down to the station, said the driver, so that Thomas can get a good start. We shan't get up the hill, answered the fireman. Come and see what's happened. The driver and fireman walked along the line, round the bend, and saw the problem. Jiminy Christmas! Exclaimed the driver. There was a landslide blocking the line before the tunnel. Go back to the train. I'm going back to the cottage, said the driver. He found the doctor with Mrs. Kyndley. Silly of me to faint, she said. You saw the red dressing gown? You're all safe? Asked Mrs. Kyndley. Yes, smiled the driver. I've come to thank you. There was a landslide on the line, doctor, and Mrs. Kyndley saw it from her window and stopped us. She saved our lives. God bless you, ma'am. Thomas and Toby cleared the line a week before Christmas, and the sun shone as a special train puffed up. Toby, Thomas, Annie, Clarabelle, and Henrietta came in that order. Sir Topham Hatt was there, and lots of other people who wanted to say thank you to Mrs. Kyndley. Merry Christmas! Said the engines and coaches as they reached the cottage. The passengers got out and went into the cottage. Thomas, Toby, and the coaches wished they could go too. Mr. Kyndley, the husband, met the passengers at the door. Sir Topham Hatt, Thomas's driver, fireman, and conductor went upstairs, while others stood in the sunshine below. The driver gave Mrs. Kyndley a new dressing gown to replace the one spoiled by the rain and wind. The conductor brought her some grapes, and the fireman gave her some woolly slippers and promised to bring some coal as a present from Thomas next time they passed. Mrs. Kyndley was very pleased with her presents. You are all very good to me, she said. Thank you. Sir Topham Hatt then said, We cannot thank you enough for preventing that nasty accident. I hope we have not tired you. Goodbye and Merry Christmas. Then, going quietly downstairs, they joined the group outside the window and sang some carols before returning to the train. Thomas, Toby, and their coaches were also thankful for Mrs. Kyndley. They were all looking forward to Christmas as it was just around the corner. Christmas was getting closer and closer, and it was starting to snow. Thomas and Toby were busy carrying passengers and parcels up and down the branch line. Everyone was happy, but Annie and Clarabelle were complaining. "It's always the same before Christmas. We feel so full. We feel so full," they groaned. "Oh, come on," said Thomas. "Where's your festive spirit? Christmas Day is almost here." Thomas passed by the cottage with a familiar figure waving to them. "Hello, Mrs. Kyndley. Merry Christmas," whistled Thomas as he passed by. He always felt better for seeing her. "Christmas wouldn't be the same without Mrs. Kyndley," said Thomas to himself. When work was over, Thomas went to see the other engines at Timothy's sheds. All their coats of paint had been polished. "Now, even though we're good allies," said Gordon to Thomas, "your driver will have to work fast to get you as smart-looking as us." "Never mind that," replied Thomas. "I have something important to say. Mrs. Kyndley saved us from that nasty accident just recently." "Yes, Thomas, she was a good hero," said Henry. "But the rest of us never thanked her properly," said James. "Exactly," said Thomas. "So since she's getting much better, I think we should all give her a nice Christmas party as thanks." "Good idea, Thomas," said Edward. Everyone was getting very excited, and the drivers and firemen felt very sure that Sir Topham Hatt would agree, as indeed he did. The engines were all busy making plans, when silence fell. Sir Topham Hatt had bad news. "The weather's changed badly, and Mrs. Kyndley has snowed up. Toby says he'll help to rescue her. Thomas, you must help too. There's no party unless you do." Thomas hated snow, but he said bravely, "I'll try, sir. We must rescue her. We must." "There's a good engine. You and Toby will manage splendidly." Thomas was wearing his snowplow and charged the snowdrifts fiercely, with Toby and Henrietta following behind. Sometimes Thomas swept the snow from the side, and sometimes they stuck fast and the workmen had to loosen them. When Thomas and Toby came near the cottage, they could go no further. "Look at that!" exclaimed Thomas's fireman. Sir Topham Hatt was right. Mrs. Kyndley's cottage was indeed snowed in. "Here we are!" whistled Thomas, and Mrs. Kyndley waved from her upstairs window. Then they heard a familiar sound of caterpillar tracks moving along the snow. "Terence the tractor!" exclaimed Thomas. "He's come to help too." "Hello, Thomas. Long time no see," said Terence. He had a snow plow and was working hard to clear a path from the cottage to the railroad line for Mrs. Kyndley. At last, the rescue was complete. Percy came by and took the tired workmen home. Mrs. Kyndley said thank you to Terence, and he said goodbye to her, and he promised to take care of her cottage as he watched them all set off. Thomas, Toby, and Henrietta made good time on their way back, as no more snow had fallen. But when they reached Tidmouth's sheds, it was as dark as a black void, and there was no one to be seen. Thomas's firebox sank with sorrow. Little did he, Toby, and Henrietta know, I was using my magic to hide Tidmouth's sheds for the surprise. And suddenly, all the Christmas lights went on. What a marvelous sight awaited Mrs. Kyndley. Edward, Henry, Gordon, James, Percy, Annie, Clarabelle, Bertie, and Terence were all wearing Santa hats. Even Sir Topham Hatt was too. "Well done. I'm really proud of you all," he said. Mrs. Kyndley thanked the smaller engines. "Thomas and Toby are good friends," she said. "And Percy, you are now my good friend too." Percy was very pleased. "3 cheers for Mrs. Kyndley!" he called. They all cheered, whistled, and sang Christmas carols. Thomas and his friends thought it was the best Christmas ever, and Mrs. Kyndley could think of nowhere she would rather live than here, with them on the island of Sodor. And I wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.